prisoners of starvation. Arise, you wretched of the earth, for justice thunders condemnation. A better world's in birth. No more traditions change shall bind us. No more enthrall. The earth shall rise on new foundations. Heaven not, we shall be all. Final conflict, let each stand in their place. The international working class shall be the human race. Final conflict, let each stand in their place. The international working class shall be the human race. Perfect, thank you. We have some minor lyrics changes. Hello and good afternoon, brothers and sisters and comrades. My name is Jonathan, and I will be co-chairing today's rally. I'm a militant trade unionist, steward of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, Local 626, and one of the founding members of the Labour May Day Committee, representative of the Communist Workers' Circle. As a fellow worker, I am honored to welcome you all to the International Workers' Day 2023 rally and march on to Queen's Park. We have 11 fantastic speakers. Each one will be giving a rousing 5-minute speech. Once we're all fired up, we will march together. Half of the speakers will be introduced by myself, and the other half will be introduced by my comrade and co-chair, Elizabeth Bice, who is also a fellow member of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. International Workers' Day was founded on the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution. May Day commemorates the fight for the 8-hour workday, a radical demand when working days could be as long as 16 hours. Not only was this demand radical, but it must have seemed impossible. For this radical dream, many brave workers gave their lives. Today, the bosses and their governments gleefully trample on the legacy of those heroes. Between the cost of food, the cost of rent, the cost of transportation, and the rising casualization of labor in the gig economy, does anyone still believe you can earn a good living with 8 hours of work a day? No! Are we just going to stand back and let the bosses take away what the workers have fought and died for? No! If working people are under attack, what do we do? The history of May Day is a history of radicalism, of illegal strikes, and it terrified the bosses. In North America, the bosses have attempted to co-opt our International Workers' Day with a flag-waving celebration of their own, called Labor Day. Waving the flag of imperialist countries, like Canada, is a sign of class collaboration and absolute submission. The natural result of this was made clear last year when on Labor Day, union leaders marched their members into the Canadian National Exhibition, where workers were on strike. We here at May Day will never cross a picket line. And we invite any worker from the PSAC, from QP Local 233, up to the mic to speak. Strike to win. There is, however, one nation in North America which still upholds the radical traditions of May Day, and that is Quebec, where workers are not only oppressed by their class, but they also face national oppression from the Anglo-bourgeoisie. The conscious elements of the international labor movement recognize that class oppression and national oppression are inextricable. Imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism, and it results in small groups of wealthy nations plundering all other nations. And so the slogan of International Workers' Day has become, "Workers of the world and oppressed people unite." Because the Labor May Day Committee bases itself on nothing other than the interests of the international working class, the speakers today fuse socialism, trade unionism, and the liberation of oppressed people into one goal. We extend our hand in solidarity to those fighting exploitation by their bosses, and oppressed people and nations fighting against imperialism. From the indigenous nations of Turtle Island to Palestine, welcome to May Day 2023, workers of the world and oppressed people unite. The Labour May Day Committee has received greetings from the Irish Republican Socialist Party, which I would like to play for you now.
The Irish Republican Socialist Party thanks us from West Belfast for our commitment to the cause of the international working class and liberation of oppressed nations. Chucky Arlaw, our day will come, on behalf of the Irish Republican Socialist Party.
All right. Our first speaker for today, it is my great honor to introduce to you Ryn Simon. Ryn Andex Simon is an Anishinaabe from St. Catharines, Niagara, where they grew up in the urban Indigenous community. Ryn has spent time working for Indigenous-based nonprofits and educating the broader public and mainstream institutions on Indigenous rights, human rights, two-spirit queer advocacy, and natural law from an Anishinaabe perspective. Ryn was also the 2022 Communist Party candidate for the riding of St. Catharines and is committed to building a strong and meaningful relationship between working class people and the Indigenous people across the Great Turtle. Ryn teaches through camaraderie and commitment to restorative justice, measures we can move towards a world of peace, love, and unity for the sake of our children, grandchildren, and those generations yet unborn.
That's my cue, I guess. Alright. Ani bonjour kinawia. Oh, hello everybody.
Hello.
Shiken dodam. Anishinaabe, Dawa, Minua, Badawarmi, Minua, Megwen, Nijo Jijak, Minadokwe, and now Shishi Guaning Nadonjaba on deck in the go. So my English name is Ryn Simon. I'm Turtle Clan Anishinaabe. My family's from Shishiguaning First Nation on Manitoulin Island. Whenever we gather as First Peoples of this territory, it's always important to offer those words of thanksgiving, to bring our minds to a place of balance and to bring our minds together in offering those thanks. Bonjour, Guje Manado, bonjour, Nindoe Namaginado. Kena Etche Young, Nishinabeg, Jaganashug, Migdaljeg, Zaljeg, Migwachke Ginwa, Shkakamikwe, Migwach, Nebesh, Migwach. Wezaki, Gamishme, Mi Jim, Mishkike, Minwa, Gwenan Juan, Gego, Migwach. Gimtago, Gimtagwa King, Aya Ye Geginwa, Migwach. Waisiya, Gokanag. Igoya, Gamishme, Mi Jim, Guilnan, Minwa, Gwenan Juan, Gego, Migwach. Benashia, Migwach, Geginwa. Ni wing and the muck, Nike Ying, Migwach. Getche, Gamishmisna, Jesus, Giboase, Shinango, Migwach. Wewe ne Jigno, Wamak, Mi Jib, Madiz, Minoa, Wewe ni Jigno, Nak. Nong, the buck Jesus, no Kamisnan, Migwach. Nong so, Gro, Nadamoa, the buck Jesus, no Kamisnan, Migwach. Kije Manado, the Banjigate. Gin Kinagego, the Midyan, Migwach. So, in summary, we're listing all of our relationships in creation, right? As Anishinaabe people and as First Peoples of this territory, we always start from that place of spirit, right? Because we are spiritual beings living a human experience. And sometimes we can get caught up with the human things in life. It's very important that we take these moments to pause and reflect about all the things we can be thankful for. We're thankful for the sun. The sun still rises every day to bring new life to us. The water still flows, even though much of it has been polluted. We still have the water, and it's important that we have rainy days like this because we need both the water from the sky and in the earth to bring that new plant life into being. Without those elements, without those plants, without those animals, we as human beings could not exist. We could not be here. And right now we are decimating our relatives in creation. And it's outside of our power in many cases. You see there's native people all over this continent fighting for our rights to land. Land back is a very strong movement right now. And it's very important that you as working class people support us in that movement because it is at its core against the oppression of all peoples, right? That was the relationship we entered back in 1764 in the Treaties of Niagara. We promised that nobody would go poor, nobody would go without on this territory. Because we as Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee and those nations that went into that agreement, that founding relationship, we understood that this earth, our mother, provides everything for us. And all we have to do is ask and not take more than we need. And we can see by this settler society that they have taken much, much, much more than they need. And our earth is dying. Our earth is dying, everybody. Like, I don't think some people really understand what that means for us as human beings. Especially as working class people, we don't get a lot of say in how this society treats the earth. We have Doug Ford up in the legislature who wants to open a ring of fire in Northern Ontario. And we had First Nations people kicked out of the legislature and told that they would be charged with trespassing or threatened with trespassing if they came back. Because it's our own land. It's the settler governments that are the true trespassers here, right? So it's about restoring our relationship to one of peace, love, and camaraderie. We always start from a position of love in a relationship. If we can't have love in a relationship, then you can't have a relationship. So that's a little bit about our teachings. I know I don't have too much time, and I did want to share a song just because I'm a little inspired by all the music going on. I think music brings people together. I've been gifted with the opportunity to carry a drum and some songs, so I think I'm going to offer you a unity song, which if you know a little bit about the history of the AIM movement, this is where that song comes from. So it's very important that you learn about our struggle as Indigenous peoples, as First Peoples of this territory, so that you can understand a little bit more about your history and how you ended up here. So I'm going to pass this mic to somebody. I don't know if anybody knows this song here, but if they want to come up and sing with me, they're more than welcome.
Thank you so much, Rin. That was fantastic. Our next speaker is Lourdes de la Peña. She is a Filipino migrant worker and a member of Migrante Ontario, an organization of Filipino migrant workers under the Bayan Coalition for National Democracy in the Philippines. She is also a part of the Campaign for Justice for Mushroom 4, Justice for All Migrant Workers, a campaign against an unscrupulous recruiter here in Ontario who withheld her and 3 other migrant workers' documents under false pretenses.
Warm and militant greetings to all who gathers here today to celebrate International Workers' Day. My name is Lourdes de la Peña, and I am a member of the Progressive Filipino Workers Organization, Migrante Ontario. We advocate for migrants' rights, uphold our dignity in the workplace, and defend the community against all forms of discrimination, exploitation, and abuse. We oppose anti-migrant laws, and most importantly, we wage campaigns to address the root cause of the Filipino migration. As we commemorate the International Workers' Day, we join our fellow migrants and workers in celebrating the achievement of workers around the globe and reflect on the struggles that we still face in our daily lives. As a migrant worker here in Canada, I am proud to stand alongside my fellow workers in the fight for justice, dignity, and respect in the workplace. As we unite with all working people in the struggle against imperialism and exploitation, plunder, and war. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has been a difficult time for everyone, but it has hit migrant workers particularly hard. As essential workers, we have been on the front lines on this crisis, working tirelessly to keep our communities safe and healthy. Yet, we have also faced unprecedented challenges, from unsafe working conditions to a lack of access to healthcare and other basic rights. Despite these challenges, we have also seen the power of workers coming together to demand change. Across the country, migrant workers have organized to demand better working conditions, stronger protection, and a pathway to residency for all. We have marched in the streets, spoken out in the media, and fought for our rights in the courts. But our struggle is far from over. Too many workers are still trapped in precarious and exploitative jobs, unable to access the basic protections and rights that all workers deserve. Too many families are still separated by borders and immigration policies that prioritize profits over people. And too many workers are still denied fair wages, which are essential to guarantee a decent life for all workers in Canada. In the Philippines, President Marcos has done a little to address the systemic problems that lead to exploitation and abuse of Filipino migrant workers. Problems with unscrupulous recruitment practices, contract substitution, and non-payment of wages are rampant. The government response to the COVID-19 pandemic has left many Filipino migrant workers stranded and vulnerable overseas, with inadequate support for repatriation, quarantine, and healthcare. The Philippine government neglect has resulted in numerous COVID-19 deaths, cases, and human violations. Instead of addressing the root causes by improving the economic situation, the Philippine government focuses on military spending to quell the Philippines people's legitimate protest. West. The Philippine military and police, with the National Task Force to End Local Communities Armed Conflict, are intensifying in militarization, spreading fear and violence in farming, fishing, and indigenous communities, and in the urban areas. Their operations specifically target progressive leaders and members of open mass organizations. Red tags as supporters of the revolutionary movement, including workers, leaders, labor unionists, peasants, women, youth, church people, and other sectors. And the military brutally murders those like Benito Chanson and Wilma Austria Chanson, who genuinely serve the people. The anti-FLCA cooperation further exposed the relationship between fascism and bureaucrat capitalism, where the state armed forces are instrument in perpetuating the ruling system, plundering the national coffers, and protecting the interests of the ruling class. Moreover, Marcos Jr. government is pushing for the Constitutional Convention, which is Marcos' formula for the charter change, that will allow for the revision of the entire Constitution to allow greater foreign ownership and control of our lands, natural resources, and the economy, removal of existing term limits of government officials, and effectively extending the terms of sitting officials, the deeper entrenchment of political dynasties, and the watering down of the provision on social justice and human rights, national sovereignty and independence, limited as they are already. As a member of Migrante International, we advocate for the 10-point migrant agenda. These include assistance, aid, and swift repatriation of migrants, combating illegal recruitment and human trafficking, sufficient access to consulate and embassy services, freedom and justice for Mary Jane Velasco and other OFWs on death row, free and comprehensive health care services, increased budget for overseas welfare assistance, welfare and legal assistance, services and protection for seafarers, continuation of the peace talks, and ending red tagging and militarization. Workers call for an end to the labor export policy. Jobs in the Philippines, not in the other countries. So today, on International Workers' Day, let us renew our commitment to the struggle for justice and dignity for all workers. Let us continue to fight for our fair wages, safe working conditions, and the right for organize. Let us demand an end to exploitation and discrimination in all its forms. Let us work together to build society that values the contributions of all workers, regardless of where they came from or what they look like. Together, we can create a world where all the workers are treated with respect and dignity. Where our contributions are valued and where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. So let us continue to fight, organize, and demand for the change that we are all deserve.
Happy May Day, everybody, despite the rain. As my co-chair Johnny says, my name is Elizabeth Weiss, and I'm a past member of the Canadian Union, retired member of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, and also from was an officer with the Toronto and York Region Labour Council for over 15 years. And I'm a member of Socialist Action. And it is my honor to introduce today Colleen Holder, a law clerk at the Ministry of the Attorney General, is the Toronto region, which is Region 5, Executive Board Member, and Regional Vice President of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, which has over 180,000 members across the province. Welcome, Colleen.
Feeling under the weather today. If I lose my voice, somebody has to come up here and take over for me. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that stellar introduction, Elizabeth. And greetings, sisters, brothers, and cousins. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour. Annie. As Elizabeth said, my name is Colleen Holder, and I'm OPSU SEFPO's Vice President for the Toronto region. It is my pleasure to bring you May Day greetings and solidarity from OPSU SEFPO, 180,000 members across Ontario, including 70,000 members in this Toronto region. I also bring you greetings from our president, JP Hornick, OPSU SEFPO's Provincial Executive Board, and from our Greater Toronto Area Council. Now this year, May Day comes at a very exciting and pivotal time for workers and the labor movement, both in Canada and around the world. After decades of massive profits for corporations and grinding austerity for workers and our communities, after 3 years of global pandemic and economic crises, faced with skyrocketing inflation, particularly for food, housing, and other essentials for workers and for our families, we're fighting for social justice. We're fighting for climate justice. We're fighting for the right of collective bargaining, the right to a decent living wage, to be able to pay our bills. We don't want to run out of money before we run out of month. Right? Understand?
Yeah.
And faced with funding and staffing crises in healthcare, education, across the public sector. I work for the public sector. Not a happy place right now. Faced with all this, working people here in Ontario and around the world are organizing, and they're fighting back in ways and on a scale we have not seen in a generation. Like you, I have been inspired to see the waves of mass strikes in Britain and in France. I've been energized by the hugely successful strike by education workers in LA, who, with the full support of their teacher colleagues, they won a 30% wage increase and major staffing and program improvements. And like you, I was proud to walk the picket lines during the recent province-wide walkout by Ontario education workers, represented by CUPE and OPSU SEFPO. This was a historic job action by the workers directly involved. It triggered a historic show of solidarity from the labor movement, students, parents, and our communities. And it won. So together, we forced the Ford government to repeal its union-busting Bill 128. Understand that? It's huge. We forced it to withdraw its imposed wage settlement and put more money on the table in the workers' pockets. And we smashed his attempts to preemptively use the notwithstanding clause again to suspend workers' rights to to free collective bargaining, including the right to strike. And now, we're seeing the remarkable nationwide strike by 155,000 PSAC members for good jobs, for decent wages, and to defend public services. Let's keep supporting them, because if they win, we all win. All these historic fightbacks should give us hope for the future. It sure as hell gives me hope. At the same time, they've shown us that if we push our struggles forward, we need to organize in our unions and together with our progressive and community allies in new ways that build our power and generate real wins. This is work that OPSUSEPO is doing internally as well. As part of that effort, I'm proud to say that delegates at our convention this month took a historic, albeit overdue, step forward by amending our Constitution to establish 7 new seats on our executive board that will ensure representation for historically unrepresented equity-seeking groups in our membership. We did that. We're also actively supporting and mobilizing for the Ontario Federation of Labor's Enough is Enough campaign.